Hello everybody, it's George from Ireland. So here I am in Wolvercote Cemetery in Oxford. I'm in the Jewish section of the cemetery. I've never been to Wolvercote Cemetery, but a lot of very distinguished people rest from their labours here. And here is the grave of Isaiah Berlin. I'm in the Jewish section of the graveyard. So he's born in Riga, Latvia in 1909, part of Tsarist Russia at the time, and he died in 1997, shortly after the election of Tony Blair. I remember reading the late, great Christopher Hitchens, also an Oxonian, saying Isaiah Berlin, his name seems such a blend of the Old Testament and like modern Germany. But a lot of Russian Jews, or Jews from Latvia, Lithuania, Ukraine, Belarus, they often had German surnames like Polner or Fuchs or whatever. Because remember, Lithuania is part of Poland, then they shifted to Latvia, and Poland was tolerant of Jews, welcomed Jews, so Poland had the biggest Jewish community for centuries. Remember, Poland back there included Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, blah blah blah. Then they're conquered by Tsarist Russia, where they're badly persecuted. He came from a wealthy business family. He grew up in St. Petersburg. He fled Russia just after the Russian Revolution. He came to the United Kingdom. He went to Cambridge University. He was famous as a philosopher and as a man of relatively conservative ideas. So he was here at Oxford most of his career, a fellow of all souls. I don't know if he's a prize fellow or not. So that's him. Remember, as little I used to get him mixed up with Irving Berlin, who was the American songwriter of Russian Jewish extraction. And look, his good wife buried beside him in a separate grave. In Orthodox Judaism, only one person can be in a grave, a spouse, and not to share the graves. But they're not frightfully full around here, and quite a few graves here you'll see that more than one person's in the grave. It's the spouses or the parents and the children or whatever. And then her maiden name, Ney Günzburg, as in she was also Jewish as well. And you can see the Hebrew inscriptions. I can't read it. And people have left stones there. So a surprisingly modest grave for a man of such stature. And then there was Harold Schuckman, who was also laid to rest here, who was a distinguished historian. I read his bump years ago. I didn't know anything about him. See people here who came from what's now the Czech Republic and possibly refugees in 1938 after the Third Reich annexed it and called it Bohemia and Moravia. So the Oxford Jewish community is not huge. Oxford's almost 200,000 people now. There's a synagogue, and there's been a synagogue since about 1880. I used to live beside it, right beside it on Richmond Road. But there was a shul somewhere else. There's a more modest house. There's also a, that Chabad house, outreach, sort of ultra-Orthodox Jews trying to persuade liberal and secular Jews to become more observant. The Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, that famous American television rabbi, he was here in the 90s just before I came up. But I think calling himself a Jewish chaplain of Oxford University, although I think that wasn't an official post, it's more or less self-appointed, but an open door policy. They have a married couple welcoming any Jewish students who'd like to show up. Oh yeah, Harold Schuckman's grave, there we go. So a historian of Russia, and many other such graves. Now, some of the Jewish graves are just lying flat, don't have upright headstones, because unfortunately there are some knuckle-dragging anti-Semites who used to vandalise Jewish graves, and it's more difficult to vandalise something when it's lying flat. Some of the people putting stones on the headstone or the grave to show that they have visited. So anyway, they've obviously blessed the soil, and the Jewish community have made just a tremendous contribution to Oxford, well, to the university, to the city, to the United Kingdom in general, like in medicine, in commerce, in education, in all sorts of spheres. And some people have got identifiably Jewish names, some who don't, like Margaret Kemp or William Beckett I'm seeing here. And then it sort of amused me that someone had the name Peter, as in taking the name of Judaism's, I suppose, worst apostate, who became a Christian and indeed the first pope. There's someone called Peter Ward. So the Jewish community, they often came in the 19th century from the Russian Empire, and sometimes anglicised their names, partly because people had trouble spelling them, pronouncing them, but also to reduce the liability to suffer anti-Semitic discrimination and so on. So there are obviously some more modern graves, but and a lot of Jewish students from abroad, particularly the United States, who are enrolled in Oxford University. What can I say? So Wolvercote, the rest of it's a Christian cemetery, but subdivided into sections, mostly Anglican, some Quaker, some Roman Catholics, whatever. Various other people rest here for all eternity, like the writer J.R.R. Tolkien and his good wife. He had 3 sons, 1 daughter. Most of them are dead now, if they're not all dead. And we'll see Sir Thomas Chapman, as in the father of Lawrence of Arabia. He's buried here, and I can't think who else is buried here. Various heads of house of Oxford colleges. I was looking for H.L.A. Hart, that celebrated professor of law who had this decades-long debate with his former pupil, Ronald Dworkin. Professor H.L.A. Hart was also Jewish, who'd initially come up to study classics, later called to the bar, was a law don for years and years, about legal positivism and so on, versus the other schools of jurisprudential thought. And Ronald Dworkin, I think, was a don here for a while, then returned to the United States. There's about 10 years between them. They're both dead now. So that is a debate that's gone on for years about what actually is a law, what counts as law. Okay, so anything else I want to know about here? Some of the oldest graves here, but they're almost illegible. There's a bit, pity that whoever the relatives are, you see their moss-grown tombs, don't care for them right now. So yeah, here they are, these people who are enriching the soil, and coming to a graveyard is a chance to ruminate upon mortality, to enjoy each day what really matters, because obviously one day I shall be fertilizing the soil and corrupting in my own fertility. What else was I going to say about these two? So yeah, Wolvercote, it's W-O-L-V-E-R-C-O-T-E, but usually pronounced Wolvercote, not Wolvercote. It's just north of Oxford, and then it's near the Thames. And there's a lovely pub, the Trout here, which is so well worth coming here up. I get mixed up these days. I think it's Banbury Road, because St Giles, a very broad street in the middle of Oxford, then it bifurcates. Banbury Road is one branch, Woodstock Road is another branch, as in those are two towns in North Oxfordshire, Banbury and Wolvercote, and they're parallel for a while, but then they diverge ever more, and you've got to pick the right one to get to Wolvercote. Okay, and it's kind of leafy, and we're in sort of a mossy, verdurous gloom sometimes if you're walking in the path. You can walk all the way from the centre of Oxford to Wolvercote, but it's a few miles. And then as usual, there's this gate lodge of the cemetery, which is very handsome. They are assured quiet neighbours, so long as they know reverence. So I'm very much a fan of burial and not cremation, because I think of Father Forrester, who died last November, and he's got no grave, so I can't visit him. So there's a columbarium. That means like doves. What's that got to do? Little plaques to remember whoever it was, unless of course you choose to retain some of the ashes. I suppose that's something, but I mean, Judaism and Christianity traditionally frowned upon cremation, but it's become widely accepted, and in fact it's less costly, so increasingly common. Right, anyway, thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon and follow me on everything, all social media. Donate on PayPal with the greatest possible generosity. PayPal is georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Okay, goodbye everybody. Toodaloo.